What's going on, movie fans? My name is Michael Weer, and I like to talk about movies. I'm also in a hotel right now, so I'm sorry about the audio quality of this video, but you record when you're inspired, and so today we are going to talk about Insidious, The Red Door. Of course, it's the fifth and final installment into the Lambert storyline. We'll get to more of that in the review, but did you know this movie was originally called Insidious, Fear the Dark? For like the longest time, that's the running title for this movie. And yes, movies change their titles all the time, but when I saw this movie, I was like, I wonder if there's like a reason they called this Fear the Dark versus now releasing it as The Red Door. And 100% there is. Like, they're scared of the dark this whole time, and they almost have to overcome that in the movie. So the movie title would have worked as Fear the Dark, but I also understand why it worked as The Red Door, because the movie is about this red demon, a red-faced demon who's behind this red door. It's like a 60-40. They could have gone either way. I get why they called it The Red Door, but it would have understood Fear the Dark. That's just something I feel like I had to tell you before getting into the review. I don't know why. That's for you. You take that home with you. With that said, let's get into the review for Insidious, The Red Door.
When you awaken the dead, the further you travel, the riskier your journey will become.
And so, guys, Insidious The Red Door is directed by Patrick Wilson, and Patrick Wilson, of course, has starred in these movies as the lead character, and it's always cool to me to see a main actor from a franchise grab the reins to a franchise and say, I've got my vision, I've got my passion, I'm going to put that into this storyline. So not only does he star in these movies, but now he's also directed one of them, and we saw that earlier this year with Michael B. Jordan, and that really worked out because I thought he did a great job directing Creed 3. So yeah, it's just cool to see Patrick Wilson direct this movie, but of course he also stars in this movie as Josh Lambert, and the movie also brought back several other characters from previous movies as well, because this movie takes place 9 years after the events of part 2, and then 3 and 4 are prequels, and if you start thinking about it too long, your head will start to hurt. So yeah, 1, 2, and then The Red Door. That's how you have to watch these movies. And 3 and 4 you can either never watch, or you can watch it at another time, but not important to the central storyline for the Lamberts. The other two stars of note, you get Rose Byrne as Renee Lambert, the wife to Josh Lambert, the mother of the household, and you get Ty Simpkins returning as Dalton Lambert. And the last time we saw him in these movies, he was a little boy. But not only does this movie take place 9 years in the future, but it also was filmed 9 years in the future. And so you're getting Ty Simpkins grown up as Dalton, and that works for the storyline. And I always appreciate that when a movie can do that. Like, when I'm watching these in the future, it's going to seem more natural because they brought back the same people and just appropriately aged them in the movie. So that works. As far as the storyline for this movie goes, you have Dalton and Josh at the end of the events of part 2 had their memory suppressed because they are able to astral project their bodies while they're sleeping into this almost land of ghosts, this further. And so they were able to suppress their memories of that, and that stopped them from having the ability of traveling into the further, which I always had a problem with, because to me it didn't make sense, because Dalton didn't know he could travel into the further and he would just do it. And then at the end of the second movie, they're like, yeah, but if you forget, you won't be able to do it. And I'm like, but he didn't know he could do it in the first place. So now it'll just be more confusing to him. So that never really sat well with me, but it was just the way they ended that movie, and it was like a happy ending to that. So they addressed that in this movie by saying that both of them have not only had a weird last 9 years, but it's also strained their relationship because, you know, Josh Lambert tried to kill the family while he was possessed, and you have Dalton Lambert, who was very scared of his dad in that time. So there's always been this uneasy tension between the two of them for the past 9 years, and they don't really know how to explain it. It's also taken a toll on Josh and Renee's relationship as a couple because, again, he tried to kill her, and she has to live knowing that he tried to do that, even though it wasn't him doing it, and he lives not remembering it at all. And so because of that strain on their relationship, they have since divorced. So now they have a divided household, and because it takes place 9 years later, you now have Dalton going to college, and Josh says, hey, I'd like to take you to college and sort of try to fix our relationship, or at least that's his plan. And so he takes him to college, and things just go from bad to worse for their relationship. And also during this time, that foggy memory that they've had starts to get more and more unlocked. And the more it gets unlocked, the more they start to realize that they can astral project and go into the further. And it's kind of cool because you're seeing Dalton, especially in this movie, try out the further for the first time as a college-age kid. And at first he thinks, well, I'm just kind of like invisible to everyone around. He doesn't realize that there's a really scary horror aspect to this further. But you, the viewer, know that because you've seen the previous movies. So it's cool seeing this character sort of develop these skills and realize what he can do. But you know there's danger lurking around every corner. And so the movie progresses from there, and of course the demon from the first movie that was trying to get into Dalton's body to take over for him or take his place, I should say, not even take over for him. It's kind of weird. Like, I'm going to take your job for you. That's what that sounded like just now. I'm going to leave it in there. But yeah, he's trying to take his body. He's trying to possess him. You have him now activated again, going after Dalton's body while he's astral projecting. And now I feel like I can't give you any more of the plot because that will spoil things. So yeah, if you're a fan of the original 2 movies and the storyline they had there with Josh and Dalton Lambert being able to astral project, I think you'll enjoy what they do with this storyline. Let's get into my likes and my dislikes. For my first like, we were just talking about the storyline itself, and I've got to say, I really enjoy how they close off the Lambert storyline in this movie. The fact that I always had that issue where the second movie just didn't sit right with me, but you get to this movie and they really close off all the avenues I had issues with, and they even solidified my issues with that movie. I was like, yeah, it doesn't make sense that they would just forget it and now it's not a problem anymore, because it became an even bigger issue, not only in their personal lives, but of course in this horror world of The Further, it became a huge issue. And so it's just cool to see that they were able to cap off this Lambert storyline. And honestly, I think that if the Insidious movies move forward from here, they should pick a new family, a new group of people. Would love to see Patrick Wilson actually direct it, but I don't think they need him to be in these movies anymore, because I think the Lambert storyline is officially concluded by the end of this movie, and I appreciate that the movie did that. I appreciate that it tied it all together. The next like I have is the jump scares for this movie. I really like how they used them in this movie. I mean, it's an Insidious movie, so you're going to get jump scares. It's just what you're going to get. There's not so many of them that it's jarring, because some movies have done that, especially in this franchise, where they just give you jump scare after jump scare after jump scare for no reason. I mean, horror movies that require jump scares, you know, that's fine. I expect that going in, but I don't want so many that it's jarring. And another issue I always have with the Insidious movies was every time there was a jump scare, there'd be this noise. Yeah, you'd get that noise every time there was a jump scare in the movies, and it became even more jarring. To the point where it was like, I'm sick of the jump scares and I'm sick of hearing that noise. And they would just constantly play it throughout. And that might be a direction style difference between the original directors of the Insidious movies and now Patrick Wilson's direction of this movie. He may not have even liked that himself. I don't know. Maybe he's sitting down in his house and he's like, if I ever direct one of these, we're taking out that damn sound every time there's a jump scare. And again, I appreciate that. That is a like for this movie, because I like that the jump scares feel appropriate in this movie, but you don't have that jarring sound every single time that there is one. My final like for this movie is actually the use of The Further. I sort of touched on it earlier, where you're seeing Dalton sort of experience The Further, but in the first and second movie, they had such an intricate story and such a detailed story to tell you with those movies. They actually interwove them. So if you watch one and then spend a few years and then watch two, you'll be like, I don't remember, wow, what is this? But if you watch 1 and 2 back to back, it's actually pretty neat, because while things are happening in the real world, things are happening in The Further, and they all sort of take place at the same time, except one is a ghost world that you can't see if you're not in the ghost world. And so it's really cool to see them sort of merge those two things together in this movie. You'll have a character that's in The Further, but you'll have a character in the real world, and they'll actually show you them simultaneously side by side. And that was really cool. I really appreciated that, because you did not get much of that in the first movie. It just sort of showed you, hey, stuff's going on in The Further right now. I wonder what it is. And in the second movie, they were like, hey, here's the stuff that was going on in The Further, but not the stuff going on in the real world. So that was a little annoying in those movies. So in this movie, they were actually able to show you both sides of that. Again, a great direction style, a great idea for this movie, showing both worlds at the same time with those characters. It made it even creepier, because you knew this person might have been in peril and they had absolutely no idea of what you were seeing on the screen. It's just a cool way to show it, and I appreciate that. I've said I appreciate that a lot in this movie, but you know, listen, when a horror movie is done right and I get a good experience out of that movie, then I'm going to say I appreciate it. I don't know. This is my word today. Tomorrow it'll be like, and that worked for me. It's just the way reviews go. Let's move on to my dislikes. For my dislikes, I really only have one gripe, and that is the writing, and that's a big gripe for the movie. But there's several instances that just, when I heard them come out of actors' mouths on screen, I was like, did anybody proofread that? Listen, I'm not a writer, but there's a line in the movie. I'll just point out one of them. There's a line in the movie where Dalton says to his little brother, he's like on the phone with him, and he goes, tell me everything about that year, little brother. And I felt like that was telling the audience, hey, remember, they're siblings, but they've already let you know that like 8 times in the movie. So there was no reason for that, for him to be like, let me know, little brother. I have a little brother. I've never once referred to him to his face as little brother. I may have told people like, yeah, that's my little brother Neville. He's a badass. He's a good guy. You know, he gets you a good car deal. What you looking for? Something on Dodge? He got you hooked up. He hooked me up. He got me an awesome Challenger. The point is, I've never called him like little brother. do you have a good deal for me? Like, it's just not something people say. And there were several moments in the movie like that. And so I just didn't like that, and I had to point that out in this review. Overall, though, I will say that I think the jump scares worked in this movie. The story worked for me in this movie. Some of the dialogue, a little wonky. Yeah, you're going to have that from time to time. But I thought it was a good closing to the Insidious movies. And so if you enjoyed the previous Insidious movies, especially the first two, I think you will really enjoy Insidious: The Red Door, or at least I did, and that's just my opinion because that's just my review, and that's my review for Insidious: The Red Door. If you enjoyed this, guys, don't forget to hit the like button. It helps the video, it helps the channel, and it helps me right here. But with that said, if you want to check out more of my content on my channel, I would invite you to subscribe to my channel because there's a ton of content on there that I would love for you to check out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Well, guys, we got to the end of another horror movie review. This time we talked about Insidious: The Red Door. And if you like this horror review and you want to watch more horror reviews on my channel, well, I've got my whole playlist of horror movie reviews right there. Or if you want to check out any of my 2023 reviews, that's every movie I've seen so far this year that I've done a review for, you can check that out right there. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all next time.